Hey everyone. Don't forget to subscribe to my second channel, Snuggy Dude, for daily My Hero Academia fanfics. The link is in the description below. Now, let's dive into part 2 of What If Deku Was Kicked Out? And see where Deku and Momo's journey takes them. Inko was looking at her son's photo, really missing him. It's a shame she treated him miserably just because she found out he didn't have a superpower. But she had no choice but to search for her son and try to make things right. She watched as Izumi came in through the door from school. The problem was she had been too serious lately, whereas she used to be cheerful. Inko, Izumi, dear, is something wrong? She asked, looking at her. You've been like this for days. Do you want to tell me what happened? Izumi, well. In the attack I had a few days ago, remember I told you Kamui saved me? Inko nodded in response. It wasn't Kamui or any other hero. It was Izuku, she said, surprising her mother. Inko, then who was it? She asked, intrigued. Izumi, it was Izuku, she said as her mother's eyes widened at the news. The villain had the heroes in a bad position. He was trying to merge with me and using me as a hostage. They didn't come near at all, fearing he'd kill me. Inko, what? She asked, a little angry. Izumi, I was really scared, she said, her eyes getting a little teary. Inko, Izumi. Izumi, but that's when I saw him, she said with a hint of happiness in her eyes. Izuku jumped towards a wall, avoiding the heroes while drawing his sword, she said excitedly. Then he quickly cut the mud villain and caught me in mid-air, she said, excitement evident in her eyes. Inko, Izumi, did you talk to Izuku? She asked hopefully. Upon hearing the question, Izumi lowered her head a little sadly. I'm surprised how quickly women can change their mood. Izumi, he left before I could say anything. As reporters and heroes started to approach, she said, smiling, but he saved me. It means he doesn't hate me. Inko, Izuku, my son, are you okay? She wondered to herself. Beach. We can see Izuku training to master One for All. He was trying to activate it, but something strange was happening. When he activated it, green lightning emanated from his body, something All Might had never done. Or had he? Izuku, lightning? He said, watching as it surrounded his entire body. Bring me Thanos, he said, punching the air and generating a lot of pressure. All Might, it's only been a week, it's incredible that you discovered it was easier to use it all over your body at once. The tension decreases. Izuku, well, that's something Wade taught me. If you're going to work on something, do it for your whole body, he said while trying to stay upright, feeling like he was going to faint at any moment. All Might, you've done well, young man. I'm sure Nana would be proud, he said, looking at the sky. Izuku, well, for now I have to get used to this, he said, still looking at the lightning surrounding his body. Having a superpower is amazing, he said, looking at his sword. I have an idea. All Might, what will you do, Midoriya? He asked, having an idea. Izuku, well, I'm just testing something. Izuku took his sword and activated One for All, and as he imagined, it was covered in green lightning. Izuku, it's incredible, he said as he wielded it from side to side while small lightning bolts emanated from it. All Might, you really impress me, Midoriya. Would you like to have a little encounter with me? Izuku, I would love to, he said, pointing his sword at him. Yaoyorozu Mansion. Momo was eating a lot of sweets while pulling many Izuku plushies from her chest. Mayuri, I knew you liked Izuku, but you must really be a stalker if you're creating dolls of him, she said with a mocking smile. Momo, it's not like that, she said, blushing, it's just that Izuku is training to pass the exam, and I don't want to fall behind him. Mayuri, can you cut bullets with swords? Momo, no, but. Mayuri, can you chop down an oak tree in one stroke? Momo, no, but. Mayuri, can you? She was interrupted. Momo, silence, she said, turning her face angrily. You're supposed to encourage me, not depress me, she said indignantly. Mayuri, I was just saying, why not just be his damsel in distress? She said, making Momo blush even more. Momo, don't be silly, I can't just be lazy and let him protect me. I'll become strong too, she said, avoiding eye contact due to her blush. Mayuri, I see. Well, I'll take my leave, Miss Momo, she said, carrying one of the Izuku dolls Momo had made while still looking away. Momo, so, damsel in distress? It's not so bad. Or is it? Beach. Izuku, damn. You really have steel muscles, he said, leaning on his katana. Izuku had a busted lip and a numb arm. All Might, what's your sword made of? You even used it as a shield against my blows. Obviously, All Might didn't use his full power, he had many small cuts all over his body. Izuku, graphene. How come with one for all and my katana I couldn't land a single cut on you? He asked, more composed now. All Might, years of practice and, he said, reverting to his true form. Izuku, still want to fight? He asked with a mocking smile. All Might, I'd prefer not to, he said, then turned around, it's time to go. Izuku, all right, he said, starting to follow him. Later. Night had fallen over the city, and Izuku was jumping between buildings. Izuku, having a superpower is the best, he shouted as he did a somersault and landed on a pole. Well, I guess I'll buy what Mama asked for, he said, entering. Izuku entered the 24-hour store and grabbed some instant curry milk and ramen for himself. Izuku, and now to Pa. Crap, he said, hiding in an aisle, as he saw Izumi and Inko about to pass by. They were chatting, so they didn't notice him. Izuku, lucky I wore a hoodie today for the cold, he said, covering his head. Izuku hurried to the checkout, but he could see them behind him out of the corner of his eye. It's not that he hated his sister or mother, he was just angry with them, feeling unable to look at them without feeling rage. Izuku, damn, he thought as he handed over the money to pay. As he took his bags and headed for the exit to escape, a voice stopped him. Izumi, hey, you, she said, making Izuku stop in his tracks, then glanced at him. You forgot these, she said, showing him the ramen bags. Izuku, you keep them, he said, turning around. When he reached the door, Izumi noticed the sword on his back, the scabbard adorned with the same engravings as his brother's katana. Izumi, wait, she said as he left the store. I said wait, she said, coming out of the store, but to her surprise, there was no one there, huh? Where did he go? She wondered, looking around. Izuku was perched on a pole, watching his sister return to the store. Izuku, well, I'm safe, he said, starting to jump across the buildings. Izuku was arriving home when he opened the door, only to see Vanessa setting the table for dinner, which was miso soup with white rice and some meat. Izuku, smells delicious, he said, surprising Vanessa as she hadn't noticed when he came back, just as expected from my mom, he said, smiling. Vanessa, I'm glad to hear that, she said as she approached him to hug him, but she saw him turn his face away when she got closer. Izuku? She asked, puzzled by his action, are you okay? Izuku, yeah, why? He asked in the same manner. Vanessa, you're as bad at lying as Wade. Now show me your face, she said, looking at Izuku seriously. Izuku, but, he met Vanessa's gaze and uncovered his head, causing Vanessa to cover her mouth in surprise. Vanessa, who did this to my baby? She asked, taking Izuku's face in her hands. Take off your hoodie, Izuku. He knew nothing would change her mind. Izuku, I was training with All Might, and we had a little encounter, he said, finishing taking off his hoodie. Vanessa, God, your arm. It's full of bruises, she said, looking angry. When I see that damn steroid blonde, he won't get away with just an apology. Wade was coming down for dinner when he saw Izuku's appearance. Wade, and how did the other guy end up? He asked jokingly, then stopped when Vanessa started glaring at him. Vanessa, you really need to be more careful with your training, she said as she kissed his forehead. Now go wash your hands, dinner's ready, she said, smiling as she entered the kitchen. Izuku just did as Vanessa asked. He really loved this family, even if it was a bit weird. He couldn't ask for a better one. 10 months had passed in the blink of an eye. Right now, Izuku and All Might were fighting at a great speed, fist to fist, but it all ended when All Might landed a punch in the boy's stomach, causing him to spit out some saliva. All Might, Midoriya, you've impressed me, he said with a big smile, you already mastered 25% of One for All. Izuku, I can't believe it, he said getting up, I still can't even land a hit or make him show a hint of annoyance, he said looking at the blonde hero. All Might, there are levels, Midoriya, he said laughing. Izuku, so, I guess it's just the UA exam left, right? He said looking at the beach, which was completely clean. All Might, are you ready? He asked the boy while smiling. Izuku, completely, he said excited and determined. All Might, I'm glad to hear that, young Midoriya. See you later, rest as much as you can in 2 days for the UA exam, he said, taking a big leap and disappearing. Izuku, well, I guess now that my training is over, my other duty returns, he said, starting to walk. Did Mayuri save some food for today? He wondered as a small growl came from his stomach. Izuku began jumping over the buildings when he reached the city, making sure no hero was watching him, as it could cause some trouble. Yaoyorozu Mansion. It was 10 in the morning, and Momo was starting to wake up. She stood up, went to the bathroom in her room, and took a bath. Afterward, she lay on her bed while picking up a book. Since she spent last night eating to train her quirk, she wasn't very hungry. Momo, Izuku, you idiot, it's been 10 months already, she said quietly while covering her face with the book. She stayed like that for a while until she heard a knock on her door. Yes? Mayuri, Miss Momo, aren't you coming down for breakfast? She asked from the other side of the door. Momo, I'm not really hungry, she said while her gaze fell on one of the hundreds of Izuku dolls in her room, and she started pressing its belly. Mayuri, well, you're missing out, she said as she left the place. Momo, am I missing out? Is breakfast really that good today? She wondered aloud. Later. Momo headed to the kitchen in search of some food. Momo, I guess I should have had breakfast, she said while holding her stomach. Mayuri, who was cleaning the kitchen, watched as Momo entered the dining room. Mayuri, Miss Momo, she said, making Momo look at her. Momo, yes? She asked. Mayuri, Izuku is, she was interrupted. Momo, don't talk to me about that idiot. It's been several days since the 10 months he asked for ended, and he hasn't returned, she said, arms crossed, with an annoyed look. He really makes me very angry. Mayuri, and there he is, she said, looking at Izuku, who was wearing his suit. He had gotten taller in these 10 months, as well as a bit more muscular. Izuku, wow, she really hates me. Well, then, I guess I can't be her bodyguard anymore, he said, pretending to be sad. Momo, on the other hand, was blank. She messed up. Momo, Izuku? She asked, turning slowly. Izuku, yes? He asked with a smile. Seeing him, she lunged to hug him, which brought a smile to Izuku's face, along with a small groan of pain because she squeezed his ribs. Realizing what she did, Momo quickly let go and regained her composure. Momo, do you have the nerve to show up here after 10 months without warning? Izuku, yes, he said with a smile. Momo, you know I'm mad, right? She asked, looking at him seriously. Izuku, yes, he said, still smiling. Momo, and do you have the nerve to still keep that smile? Izuku, yes, he said while Mayuri tried not to laugh. Momo, then why don't you wipe it off? She asked, annoyed. Izuku, well, because you look very beautiful, Miss Momo, he said, making her blush immediately. In fact, he paused. You look beautiful in any way, he said, still smiling. Momo just lowered her blushing gaze. Izuku could indeed change her mood quickly. He was like her secret weapon to calm her down. Mayuri just watched this with a slight blush on her cheeks, remembering what happened a few hours ago. Flashback. Mayuri was making breakfast, humming a tune. Izuku, wow, the grumpy blonde sure has a talent for being a singer, he said, teasing Mayuri. Mayuri, shut up, bland broccoli, she said without looking at him, but then quickly turned around surprised. Izuku? She asked, seeing him and starting to run to hug him. Izuku was just surprised by the act and returned the hug. Izuku, looks like someone around here missed me, he said, watching as Mayuri quickly let go of him. Mayuri, I don't know what you're talking about, idiot, she said, a little blush on her face. Izuku, see, you should always have that attitude, greet me with a warm hug, not call me an idiot, and smile more. That way, you actually seem like a girl, he said, before a pan crashed into his face, leaving him unconscious. End of flashback. Momo, have you finished your training? She asked, a bit calmer now. Izuku, it was tough, and I still haven't mastered it well, but I made some progress, he said, a bit more confident. Momo, I see. Because at UA, you won't be able to use your katana, she said, watching as his expression turned to shock. Izuku, well, I guess I can't help it, he said, feeling a bit down. Momo, don't worry, whenever needed, I can create one for you, she said, trying to lift his spirits. Izuku just nodded as he stretched a bit. Momo, oh. I forgot, follow me to my room, she said as she began to walk, seemingly forgetting that she was hungry. On the other hand, Izuku just looked at her confusedly and started to follow her. Momo entered her room and froze. She had forgotten about the Izuku dolls scattered all over. Izuku entered and felt a drop of sweat run down his temple. Izuku, looks like someone missed me, he said, amusedly looking at her. Momo ushered him out of her room, and Izuku waited outside for a few seconds until she came out with a new case in her hands. Momo, here, this is a katana like the one I made you when I was 12, but this one is much more resistant. Izuku, are you sure I can take this? He asked the raven-haired girl, while she simply nodded. I accept because I know you'll change your mind, he said, and Momo smiled. Midoriya residence. Izumi was lying on her bed, staring at the ceiling as if it were the most interesting thing in the world. Izumi, the UA exam is in 2 days, she said as she stood up. Is it okay if I use this fire? She wondered aloud. Izumi was looking at one of the All Might figures that Izuku cherished. Izuku, your dream was to be a hero as amazing as him, right? Are you going to UA? Inko, Izumi, come down for breakfast, she yelled from the kitchen. Izumi, I'm coming, she yelled, leaving her brother's room. Yaoyorozu Mansion. Tomoya, so, you've become stronger, Izuku? He asked while playing chess with Izuku. Izuku, you wouldn't believe me if I told you, he said with a serious look. Erina, I was surprised to hear that you were back. Mayuri, for me, you could stay another 3 months, she said, pretending to be annoyed. Izuku, I don't know why the Izuku doll in your room tells me otherwise, he said, smiling victoriously. Mayuri, how do you know about that? She shouted, but quickly regained composure as if she hadn't heard anything. Momo, this isn't an Izuku per Mayuri, she said quietly. Izuku, the UA exam is in 2 days, so, will I still keep my job even while attending school? He asked, unsure. Check, he said, making Tomoya angry. Tomoya, but you were distracted, he said, annoyed. Erina, yes, Izuku, there might come a time when Momo needs your protection. Izuku, I see, he said, smiling, then there's no problem. Izuku was arriving home as he did every afternoon. Izuku, I'm back, he said, entering his house. Wade, broccoli boy, I got you a present, ta-da, he said, pulling out a red suit identical to his but a bit smaller. Izuku, what the heck? He asked, seeing it. Wade, your suit. Izuku, there's no way in hell I'm wearing that, he said, ignoring him. Wade, but we'd be like Batman and Robin, he said, offended. Wait, I'll get my suit, he said, going upstairs. Izuku, damn, he surely won't leave me alone again, he said, sitting on the couch. Wade, honey. Where's my super suit? Wade shouted from upstairs. Vanessa, it's at the dry cleaners, you stained it with blood and it had several holes, she shouted from the kitchen. Izuku could only laugh at the scene. It was morning, the sun's rays illuminated the sky, and our favorite green-haired boy showed no signs of wanting to wake up. Vanessa, Izuku, you'll be late for your exam, do you want to miss it? She called from the other side of the door. Izuku just made a gesture of annoyance to cover himself with his tiger blanket. Vanessa, you forced me to do this, she said as she entered his room and took the cover of his katana. Wake up, she said trying to hit him, but it was futile. Izuku stopped it with just his hand. Izuku, good morning, Vanessa, he said getting up, I'll go brush my teeth, I'll be down for breakfast in a moment, he said as he entered the bathroom. Vanessa just felt a bit sad. Like every day, she had tried to hit the boy at some point, and Wade had told her that even for him, it was difficult to touch him. Vanessa, another day, then, she said leaving the room. Although he didn't show it, Izuku was excited. He could measure how strong he had become in these last few years, so he had to get the highest score on the exam. Izuku, I'll be number 1, so I'll show Wade and All Might that they didn't waste their time with me, he thought, clenching his fist, as he finished his breakfast. Wade, so, are they going to beat you up? He asked with a mocking smile. Izuku, quite the opposite, he replied with an arrogant smile. Wade, oh, okay, take care then, he said without paying attention. Izuku, well, I'm off, he said as he stood up and took his katana. Wade, broccoli boy, a surprise will be waiting for you when you enter UA, he said as he watched Izuku close the door. Vanessa, haven't you told him yet? Yaoyorozu Mansion. Momo had woken up a few hours ago, earlier than Izuku. Well, it couldn't be said that she woke up if she hardly slept. Right now, she was having breakfast with Mayuri by her side. Mayuri, Miss Momo, are you alright? Mayuri is the one from the multimedia, Hayasaka XD. Momo, am I? Do you think Izuku will pass? Mayuri, I don't know what you're worried about, that idiot is strong, she said as she took a sip of juice. Besides, he's already in UA, she said calmly. Momo, that's right, I forgot, Momo shouted, remembering. Mayuri, I have no doubt that you're also an idiot, she said in a whisper. Momo, huh? Did you say something? Izuku was standing outside a large door with more people. Izuku, the written exam was a joke, he said as he massaged his shoulder. According to Present Mike, they have to face several robots that will give them points to pass. Elsewhere, a green-haired girl was somewhat nervous, looking around. She really didn't know anyone there until she could see a distinctive hair color. Izumi, Izuku? She whispered to herself, as she started walking towards him, but someone stopped her. Ida, hey, that guy is very focused, he said as he watched Izuku staring fixedly at the door. Do you want to distract him? Izumi, no, I just want. She didn't finish speaking as she heard the doors start to open. When they began to open, Izuku shot out and entered, confusing everyone. They just stood there confused, waiting for the door to finish opening. Present Mike, what are you waiting for? A countdown? A real hero doesn't have one, he shouted, making everyone start running. As they entered through the door, several were surprised, as there were several destroyed robots, or rather, all of them had clean cuts at different points. Filler boy, oh crap, we have to hurry if we want to score points, he shouted, getting everyone to follow him. Minutes later. Izuku, with that, I should have at least scored 126 points, it's time to rest, he said, breathing heavily. Now we just have to wait for the exam to finish, he said, sitting on one of the robots he had broken. Izuku only cut the robots with his katana without activating his one for all since he had decided to only use it in cases where he really needed it. Izuku, what will Mayuri cook today? He thought, sheathing his sword. I think. He didn't finish speaking as someone interrupted him. Izumi, Izuku, she shouted, appearing in front of him. Izuku, ah, he said, clutching his heart. Izumi? He asked, surprised. Izumi, I knew you would also take the exam, Izuku, she said, trying to hug him, but he dodged her. Izuku, you're wrong. My name is Carlos Santana, he yelled as loudly as he could while trying to escape from his sister. Izumi, don't lie, you said my name, she said as she began to chase him. Izuku, I told you, my name is Car. He didn't finish speaking as he saw a nearly 25-meter robot making its appearance. Oh, crap, what the heck? He said, starting to run in another direction. Izuku was about to reach the exit when he heard a girl scream, and when he looked back, he saw a girl about to be crushed by the robot. Izuku, oh, shoot, here we go again, he said as he activated full cowling and made a great leap, grabbing the girl in his arms and jumping to another building. Uraka, thank you, she said, watching as the boy who saved her emitted green rays. Izuku, it's not over yet, he said, taking his katana and making a big jump. Lightning cut, he shouted as he began to spin and plummet. All everyone could see was how the robot split in two and then fell. Present Mike, the exam is over, we'll send the results by mail, he said to conclude the test. Izuku just activated full cowling and started jumping until he reached the door and disappeared before Izumi's surprised eyes. Izuku had a quirk? She wondered as she walked to the exit resigned. Meanwhile. Uraka, now, how do I get down from here? She wondered as she looked around. Izuku was walking towards the Yaoyorozu mansion. He was a bit hungry, and Mayuri cooked very well. Of course, he would never admit it, but she already knew. Yaoyorozu mansion. Erina, how did it go? She asked the broccoli boy. Izuku, honestly. It wasn't so difficult, I imagined a tougher exam. Tomoya, don't be arrogant, it was easy for you because you're strong, he said with a playful smile. Mayuri, but that doesn't change the fact that you're an idiot, she said, knowing the broccoli boy would glare at her. Izuku, but at least I have good taste in food, he said, sticking his tongue out. Momo, enough, both of you, she said, a little jealous of their camaraderie. Erina, will you claim what's yours, daughter? She asked with a playful smile. Tomoya, oh, it's your moment, he said as he pulled out a camera from who knows where. Mayuri just clicked her tongue and looked away. Izuku, as always, didn't understand anything. He just wanted to eat some of Mayuri's food in secret, as always. Momo, Mom, she shouted, embarrassed and indignant. I'm leaving, she said, going up to her room, completely red. Izuku just went to the kitchen and took a plate of food, pretending it tasted awful when Mayuri also entered. Later, Izuku was walking back home. It had already gotten dark. He was passing by a park near his house when he heard a voice. Shigaraki, hey, kid, he said as he approached him slowly. Izuku, so, the unpleasant presence I felt from the Yaoyorozu house was you? Izuku said with a neutral gaze. Shigaraki, that you were able to detect me as an achievement, he said sinisterly while putting on a twisted smile that barely showed because of the hand on his face. Izuku, what do you want? He said as he took his katana. Shigaraki, have you thought about it? He asked while scratching his neck. Izuku, I'll tell you the same thing as last time, he said, his gaze filled with anger. I won't join you, I won't be a villain, and I assure you that if you mess with someone close to me, you won't live to tell the tale. Lightning bolts emanated from his fists, so you better disappear. Shigaraki, you don't know what you want, brat, he said angrily. We'll meet again, kid, he said as he entered a purple portal. Izuku, I just hope you come out alive, he said, resuming his path. It was morning, and the UA results had just come yesterday. As Izuku expected, he had passed with the highest score, getting 100 points in the written exam and another 150 in the practical, plus 60 points for saving the brown-haired girl. That added up to 310 points. Right now, Izuku was with Momo in her car, heading to UA. Momo, so, you were the best? She asked, looking at him. Izuku, of course, because if I wasn't, I wouldn't be worthy enough to be your bodyguard, he said, causing Momo to blush slightly. Momo, naturally, she said, looking away, which made Izuku laugh. Izuku, I wonder if they'll be strong, he said, thinking out loud. Momo, who? She asked, confused. Izuku, our classmates, he said, looking at her. I'm looking forward to sparring with them. Momo, you won't fight anyone, understood? She scolded. Izuku, but, he tried to speak but was interrupted. Momo, understood? She asked with a smile and an aura that made Izuku tremble. How were she and Mayuri the only ones who could make him tremble? Izuku, okay, he said, looking down sadly. Later, Izuku exclaimed, they're huge. Looking at the door labeled 1A in the center. Why are they so big? Momo, well, you see, I had good nutrition when I was little, so I think my size is because of that, she said, blushing. Izuku, what the heck? I meant the door, he said, equally embarrassed. As Momo realized what he meant and what she said, she ran off blushing down the hallways. Izuku, and there she goes, he said, opening the door to his class only to find a boy with glasses arguing with an ash blonde-haired boy. Ida, it's rude to put your feet up on the seats. It's disrespectful to the heroes who sat there before, he scolded. Bakugo, TSK, you wanna shut up for once? He asked, quite irritated until Ida noticed Izuku's presence. Ida, you, he said, pointing at Izuku. Izuku, I am innocent of any charges against me, Your Honor, he said quickly, not wanting to cause trouble. Bakugo, deku? He wondered, quite surprised. Ida, you were the one who figured out the purpose of the exam. I'm really happy to be in the same class as you, he said, reaching out his hand. I feel the same, Izuku said, taking his hand. At that moment, they both heard the door open only to see a brunette. Uraka, you're the one who saved me in the exam, she said, rushing to hug him. Izuku, hello, he said, a little embarrassed. Uraka, I was really scared, she said, still hugging Izuku. Thank you. Izuku, you don't need to thank me, I did it because it's what a hero does. He didn't finish speaking as a sinister voice interrupted him. Momo, well, I leave for a few minutes to the bathroom and find you like this, she said with a dark aura behind her. Izuku, he said, hiding behind Ida. Izuku? She asked when she saw him as she entered the classroom. Izuku, who is Izuku? He asked, putting on a brown afro wig. I am Juanito Rivera. Izuku, she said, jumping and hugging him. I missed you, you idiot, she said, letting go and looking into the eyes of the boy who was taller than her. Izuku, hi, Izumi, he said with a small smile, causing Izumi to shed a few tears. Momo, isn't it enough for you to have just this brunette girl, but you also have to go for a green-haired one who looks a lot like you? She asked, looking at the green-haired boy who only had a nervous smile. Izumi, and who are you to talk to Izuku like that? She asked, taking Izuku's arm. Momo, well, I'm his best friend, and he belongs to me, she said, pointing at Izuku. Who are you? She asked, annoyed. Izumi, his sister, she replied in the same tone. The whole 1A class watched attentively to see how that argument would end. When Momo heard what Izumi said, she quickly approached her and then slapped her hard, which surprised everyone, and Kaminari was already eating popcorn. Izumi, why? She asked, surprised. Momo, how can you call yourself his sister after doing that to him? She shouted, pointing at Izuku's arm, which he always kept covered by a sleeve. It should be noted that Aizawa was already awake and was going to interrupt them, but the argument was getting good, and he decided to stay quiet. Izuku, what are you talking about? He asked nervously, looking at Momo, who only had a frown. Momo, do you think I don't know why you cover your arm? Why you always wear long sleeves and only cover that arm? She asked, quite angry, but someone interrupted them. Aizawa, if you want to make friends, go somewhere else, he said with a serious look but with dark circles. Kaninari, who let a vagabond in? He asked before watching as a marker hit his forehead and he fell unconscious. Aizawa, anyone else? He asked, to which everyone shook their heads. Well, follow me, he said, leaving the classroom. All the kids were in the back area only with their physical education uniforms. Mina, what are we going to do? She wondered. Jiru, I don't know, maybe some races? Izuku, or maybe some manly fights? He said, excited, only being supported by Kirishima. Deadpool, I'm afraid it'll just be simple stuff, he said, starting to greet everyone. Aizawa, he's the teacher who will be teaching with me to class 1A from now on, he said, pointing at Deadpool. His name is Wade Wilson. Deadpool, but you can call me Tuffla, he said, smiling. Everyone, Tuffla? Deadpool, your little cutie, he said, starting to laugh. Izuku, this is gonna suck, he said, scratching the back of his head a little uncomfortable. Izuku, so, what do we have to do? He asked, looking at Aizawa. Aizawa, you're Midoriya, right? The kid who got in on recommendation but still took the exam and ended up in first place, he said, examining him. Kirishima, he got in on recommendation but still took the exam? He asked, surprised. Mina, wow, that's really impressive, she exclaimed excitedly. Kaminari, you're really something, man. He said, patting him on the back. Izumi, Midoriya got in on recommendation? You must be really good for that to happen. She thought, looking at the green-haired boy. Izuku, oh come on, it's not that big a deal. Bakugo, TSK, first he disappears, then he steals all the attention. He said, annoyed. Jiru, could someone be jealous, perhaps? She asked teasingly, looking at Bakugo. Bakugo, who the hell's jealous, earphone jack? He yelled, angry. Aizawa, take this and throw it. He said, handing him a kind of disc, but use your quirk. Izuku, this moment would come sooner or later. He said as he stood in front of Aizawa -15%, he whispered as his body was covered in green lightning. This surprised everyone, especially Aizawa, who was informed by Nezu that he had won for all and knew how difficult it was to control it by all might. Aizawa, let's see what you can do. Bakugo, that idiot won't even be able to throw it more than 60 meters. He said with irritation in his voice. Kaminari, not cool, man. That's like my quirk. He said, feeling like he was being mimicked. Sero, yeah, but his is green. Mina, he has a point. Uraka, go, deku. That was when Izuku moved his wrist slightly, and then the lightning began to gather there. Izuku, what the hell? He thought, seeing the amount of electricity he was emitting, it's now or never. He said, throwing the ball, but the strange thing was that they never saw it. Ida, did he disintegrate it? Wade, you're a pain, Izuku. That'll be another cost for the school. Izuku, shut it, Wade, he said, with a vein popping on his forehead. But all that discussion stopped when they heard a beep from Aizawa's tablet. Aizawa, 15,378 meters? he said, surprised. Momo, Izuku, you had a quirk? She asked, surprised. Izumi, what was that? Surprised. Bakugo, TSK. Izuku didn't know how to answer Momo's question, so he decided that a little lie wouldn't hurt. Izuku, I actually always had one, it's just that I developed it later than you guys. But it's not something I can use freely, as it puts an excessively large burden on my body. He said quickly, something that everyone heard. Deadpool, but when I found you, you didn't have a damn thing. He shut up when he saw his murderous aura. It's just like Vanessa, he thought, terrified. Izumi was surprised to hear what Izuku said. They had really been mistaken. He had a quirk, and a better one than all of them. Aizawa, now it's your turn, Shuko. He said for a girl with white and red hair to pass among them. You got it on recommendation. Shuko, how annoying. She said, taking the disc and then creating an ice bat, which left everyone incredulous, throwing the disc a little upward and then hitting it. Aizawa, 135 meters. He said, watching as Shuko left the place. So all the classes for the day would end with only Izuku getting the number 1 spot in the physical exam. Momo, Izuku, will you accompany me home? She asked as they gathered their things. Izuku, it's my duty, Miss Momo. He said with a smirk. This conversation was overheard by Izumi, so she decided to ask something she was curious about. Izumi, are you two dating? She asked, somewhat annoyed, but not enough to be noticed. Momo, no. Not yet. She said in a whisper. Yaoyorozu Mansion. Mayuri was washing some dishes when the one she was washing broke. Mayuri, for some strange reason, I feel like hitting Izuku. She said, annoyed. School. Izuku, I'm her bodyguard. He said with a smile, we couldn't talk properly earlier. Would you like to talk now? He said, scratching his head nervously. Izumi, of course, I'd love to. She said, smiling happily. How could she not? Her brother, whom she thought hated her, wanted to talk to her. Wait, your bodyguard? Izuku, it's a long story. He said, unenthusiastically, I have an idea, he said, getting the attention of both girls, why don't you come to dinner at Momo's house? Momo, huh? She asked, surprised. Izumi, can I really? She asked, excited. Izuku, can she, right? He asked, looking at Momo. Momo didn't really like the idea of Izumi coming to her house, but if Izuku asked, there was no way she could refuse. After all, he rarely asked for things, and they were always letting him out a bit earlier or sharing some other candy. Momo, fine, but only because you asked me to. She said, avoiding his gaze. Villains League. Kurogiri, what will you do to get the kid to join you? He asked, watching as Shigaraki scratched his neck. Shigaraki, he's stuck on wanting to be a hero. I'll show him how fun the Villains League can be soon. He said, smiling, you'll kneel before us. Kurogiri, why is that kid so important? He asked, interested. Shigaraki, that kid gave Stain a run for his money 2 years ago, well, even though Stain didn't even touch him. He finally said, surprising Kurogiri. They were definitely up to something big, the attack on the USJ would be more. Izumi, wow, she said as they entered through the big gate. Izuku, I said the same thing, he said with a nervous smile. Momo, they really look alike. Izumi, of course, after all, we're twins, she said, pressing her cheek against Izuku's. Izuku felt uncomfortable with Izumi's action, as he wasn't used to that kind of affection. Momo, so. Can you tell me why you're so attached to Izuku when you were the one who kicked him out of your house? She asked, giving Izumi a penetrating look. Izuku, Momo, you shouldn't, he was interrupted by Izumi. Izumi, I truly regret what I did. I know there's no way to justify such an action, but I hope you can forgive me, she said, looking at Izuku with determination in her eyes. Momo, humph, she said, looking out the window, annoyed. Izuku, Izumi, I never hated you or held any grudges, but it did hurt, to be honest, he said, sounding melancholic. Izumi was about to respond when the car stopped, and the driver opened the doors to see a blonde girl standing at the entrance of the mansion. Mayuri, welcome, miss, she said, looking at Momo. Then, she turned to Izuku. And what are you doing here? She asked, noticing Izuku yawning. Izuku, trying to avoid grumpy blondes. What about you? He finally asked, seeing a displeased look on the girl's face. Izumi, hello, she said to the green-haired girl with a smile. Mayuri just glanced at her and returned a smile. Mayuri, welcome. Are you a friend of Miss Momo? She asked, looking at the unfamiliar girl. Izumi, I'm Izuku's sister, she said, surprising Mayuri. While Izuku had mentioned her, he also recounted what she had done that day. Mayuri, so, you're the one who, she couldn't finish as Izuku covered her mouth. Izuku, well, who's hungry? He asked as he and Mayuri headed inside, Mayuri still with her mouth covered. Izuku and the others entered the dining room where Erina and Tomoya were starting to sit down. Erina, oh, welcome, she said as a servant placed a plate in front of her. So, you're the girl Momo invited to dinner? She asked, and Izumi nodded. That's rare. Momo hardly ever invites a friend to dinner, if ever, she said with a smile. Momo, this time it was at Izuku's request, surprising Erina. Erina, Izuku? She said, looking at him as he nervously smiled. Isn't Mayuri and my daughter enough for you? Do you need another girl? She asked, making Izuku, Mayuri, and Momo blush, while Tomoya choked on a piece of chicken. Izumi, you're totally wrong, she said, blushing slightly. I'm Izuku's sister. Both Erina and Tomoya were surprised by what the broccoli said. Erina, you're Izuku's sister? She said, her expression turning serious, and Izumi just nodded. I consider Izuku as my own son and love him as such. Meeting his real sister is a real disgrace, she said, surprising everyone. You, your mother, and your father despised and abandoned him. You're truly despicable people. Those words shocked everyone, and Izumi felt like she would start crying at any moment. Izuku, ma'am, that's enough, he said, trying to calm his sister. Erina, be quiet, Izuku, she said coldly to Izumi. Tomoya, it's going to rain blows here, so see you later, he said as he left the room. Izumi, I'm sore, she was interrupted. Erina, do you know why Izuku never lets anyone touch his arm? Or why he hides it? She asked, approaching Izuku. Izumi could only shake her head. Erina, Izuku, roll up your sleeve to your elbow, she said, surprising him. Mayuri, ma'am, that's enough, she said, helping Erina regain her composure. Erina, I'm sorry for my behavior, Izuku, she said ashamed. But please, I'll ask Miss Izumi to leave. Izumi just nodded and was guided by Mayuri. Once outside the house, Izuku managed to catch up to her. Izuku, Izumi. He called, making her turn to look at him. Izumi, I'm really sorry, Izuku. I know I treated you badly. I understand Miss Erina, she said, starting to cry. I'm truly sorry. Izuku was about to respond, but something wasn't right. Something didn't feel right. Izuku's expression changed to one of surprise and terror. That bloodlust was truly surprising, and he felt it very close. Izuku, crap, he said as he jumped onto the mansion's roof and headed to the backyard at full speed. Crap, crap, crap. Backyard. Erina was having a cup of tea. That girl had really ruined her appetite, so she just wanted to calm down a bit. Erina, what does that girl think she's doing coming here after what she did to Izuku? She said as she transformed her teacup into a ceramic ball with her quirk, spinning it in her hand until she felt someone touch her shoulder. Erina turned, thinking it was probably Momo or Mayuri, but what she really saw left her frozen. Erina, who are you and how did you get in? She asked, quickly standing up. Stain, they call me the anti-hero delinquent, he said, pointing one of his katanas at her neck. Now die and make me rich, he said with a smile. Erina could only let out a choke scream as she watched the katana getting closer and closer to her neck. Stain was about to accomplish his goal when he felt a foot crash into his face, sending him flying a bit far. Izuku, Stain, he said with a total seriousness. Erina, Izuku? She asked, surprised, watching as Izuku's body emitted green rays. Stain, you damn broccoli, he said quite irritated. Mind your own business, like being Wade's bitch, he said with a sadistic smile. Izuku, could you remind me who kicked your ass last time we met? He said as he pulled out his katana. Stain, I let you live because I felt you were one of the few true heroes. Too bad it won't be the same this time, he said as he quickly lunged at Izuku. Izuku, we'll see, he said as he mimicked the anti-hero's action. Izuku dodged a slash aimed directly at his stomach, then made an upward cut that Stain blocked with his katana, giving a kick to the ground, which made Izuku recoil. Erina didn't know what to do. There was a life or death knife fight in front of her. So she did the most convenient thing for her. Erina, ah! She screamed, calling for help. Stain, damn bitch, he said as he aimed for her heart but missed as Izuku managed to stab his katana into one of his legs. You bastard. Izuku, what are you looking at? He said, smiling arrogantly. At that moment, the other servants started arriving because of Erina's scream. Seeing that, Stain frowned and escaped through a purple portal. Izuku, damn, he said as he sheathed his katana. Vanessa, so, you ran into your sister again? She asked as she sat beside him. Izuku, well, my first day of school couldn't have been stranger, he said, releasing a deep sigh. Wade, that bastard Stain. I was sure I stuck a grenade up his ass last time, he said, pouring himself some cereal, but I'm surprised he escaped. Anyway, Melanie's waiting for me, he said, heading up to his room. Izuku, didn't you get rid of that unicorn? He asked Vanessa. Vanessa, I did, but somehow he keeps finding her. He says they're inseparable, she said, starting to laugh. Izuku, well, we're talking about Wade here, he said, laughing too. Wade, I can hear you guys. Izuku was currently lying in his room. Something had been intriguing him for a while now. Why wasn't Miss Erina with her bodyguards? Izuku, is it impossible that they've infiltrated? He thought, trying to analyze all the solutions, but everything led to the conclusion that the attack had been well planned. The League of Villains meant business. But why the hell did they want him in their group? As far as he could remember, he didn't have any abilities that would benefit them. It was really shitty to think about. Izuku, I guess I'll think about it more tomorrow, he said quietly. Wade's room. Vanessa, you still haven't told him? She asked as Wade put on his All Might pajamas. Wade, he doesn't need to know, he said, looking serious, at least not for now. Vanessa, but he always suffered because he didn't have a quirk, and that was never true. Wade, Vanessa, his quirk is too dangerous, even for me, and I'm practically immortal, he said, sighing, it takes at least 54 hours for me to regenerate. Vanessa, he'll find out, she said, watching as Wade took Melanie out of a safe. Wade, too much sass and not enough cuddles. It was morning, the sunlight was shining directly into Izuku's eyes. He opened them with a little annoyance, then heard a knock on his door. Vanessa, if you don't wake up now, you'll be late, she called before heading back downstairs. Izuku got up and walked to the bathroom. Later. Izuku, hero and villain training? He asked, looking at All Might. All Might, yes, Midoriya Shonen, today all of you will split into 2 teams, he said, taking out a large box. Alright, everyone take a number. The teams will be the same as in the anime, except Izumi will be with Ida and Bakugo. Momo, Professor Might, isn't this unfair? She asked, annoyed by the 3 versus 2 difference. All Might, Midoriya Shonen, Student Uraka, any complaints? Both shook their heads, then there's no problem. Now, just train and complete the exercise, he said, watching as 5 kids enter the building. Izuku, Uraka, here's the plan. I once dealt with Bakugo in my childhood, and I know how proud he is. So, I guess he'll come after me. Probably Ida and Izumi are guarding the bomb, I think it's in the last building. Go wait for me there, he said, noticing Uraka's surprised expression. What? Uraka, you're quick to come up with strategies, she said as Izuku nervously laughed. Izuku, I actually have a strategy to disable each one in the class, he said, surprising All Might and the other kids. Waiting room. Kaminari, that's scary, he said, trembling slightly. Kirishima, that's not manly. Momo, it's natural, considering it's Izuku, she said with a small smile. Building. Izuku, now, all I have too, he didn't finish as the wall around him exploded. Kaminari, what the hell? What the hell? Izuku managed to push Uraka away from the debris. Izuku, go, he shouted, watching the girl run off. Bakugo, deku, he yelled, creating small explosions in his hands. Izuku, hey, Kachan, he said, smiling kindly. Bakugo, bastard, you disappear and then come back saying you're stronger than me? Don't screw with me, he said, trying to blast him in the face, but Izuku jumped back, avoiding it. Izuku, hey, calm down, spiky hair, he said, taking a fighting stance. Waiting room. Sero, this is crazy. Momo, this fight is unfair, she said, looking at All Might. Izuku doesn't have his swords right now, he's just using the sports outfit because his isn't ready yet. Deadpool, you're wrong, kiddo, he said, appearing out of nowhere. I didn't raise a wimp who only plays with knives, he said, pointing at the screen. Mineta, where did you come from? Deadpool, from my mom, and you? Mineta was about to reply, but an explosion caught everyone's attention. However, they couldn't see anything because the screen was filled with smoke. Kaminari, I can't see anything. Mina, neither can I, she said, squinting. Jiru, I can't hear anything. Hagakure, look, she shouted, pointing at the screen. Bakugo was lying with his face buried in the concrete of the building with Izuku's hand behind his head. Izuku, did that hurt? He asked, looking at Bakugo, who could barely stand. Bakugo, bastard. Use your quirk, he yelled, quite angry. Izuku, nope, don't need it, he said, ducking to avoid one of Bakugo's explosions. Izuku quickly leaned on the ground, kicking Bakugo and sending him 2 meters back. Bakugo, take this, he shouted, pulling out a metal stick from his glove. Shine, he yelled, causing another big explosion. Kirishima, well, shit, he said, as surprised as everyone else. Jiru, hey. What if we just stop the fight? All Might, I think that would be the Kore. He didn't finish as he saw what was happening on the monitors. Deadpool, oh, crap. Izuku was holding Bakugo's arm to the side with his left arm and gripping his face with his right hand, a few centimeters from the ground. Izuku, time for you to sleep, he said before starting to run, carrying Bakugo through several walls. Kaminari, please remind me never to piss off Midoriya, he said as the others nodded. Momo. Izuku just let go of an unconscious Bakugo's body, then started walking, cracking his neck a bit. Izuku, alright, now where's Uraka? He said before quickly disappearing from everyone's sight. Kirishima, what the hell? Aizawa, that fighting style. He's the guy who faced over 30 armed men with just a katana. Deadpool, when did you arrive? Aizawa, I was bored in the classroom, so I came to see what was happening here. Aoyama, did you say that Izuku is that kid? He asked, surprised. Mina, the news talked about him, said he'd probably be an incredible hero in the future, she said, analyzing everything. With Izumi and Ida. Ida, what do you think those explosions were? He asked, looking at the green-haired girl. Izumi, it was probably Izuku teaching Bakugo a lesson, she said with a smile. Ida, I don't know if you know, but we have to fight them, he said, feeling someone's gaze. Uraka, well, now I'll just wait for Izuku to arrive, she said as she sat down. Izuku, hello, he said, touching her shoulder. Uraka, ah, she screamed in fright, but Izuku covered her mouth and removed it slowly. Sorry, now they know we're here. Izuku, that was the idea, he said, smiling. Ida, get out of there, he said, guarding the bomb next to Izumi. Izuku, since you insist, he said, delivering a strong blow to the wall and grabbing a large piece of it. Uraka, he shouted for her to touch it, then he kicked her strongly towards where Izumi and Ida were, making them jump away from the bomb. Izumi, take this, she said as Izuku only crossed his arms to protect himself from the attack. Izumi stopped her attack upon seeing that she couldn't harm her brother again. Seeing that, Izuku signaled to Uraka, who used her quirk on herself and jumped high. Izuku, go, he said while grabbing her foot and throwing her towards the bomb. Ida, you're not getting away, he said, using his Recipro burst to try to stop Uraka. Ha! Useless heroes never, he was sent flying by Izuku's counterattack. All Might, the heroes win, he shouted, hearing everyone's excited cheers. Izuku and Uraka arrived at the waiting room, him dragging Bakugo along the floor by his shirt. Jiru, couldn't you carry him in your arms? She asked, sweat beading on her forehead. Izuku, I could have, but my arms belong to Miss Momo, he said, surprising everyone and making Momo blush. Izumi, and who decided that? She asked, somewhat annoyed. Momo, well, I did, of course, she said, giving Izumi a challenging look. Izumi, I'm his older sister, and since he's not yet 18, he's not allowed to carry another girl on his arms who isn't his sister, she said, sticking out her tongue. Momo, you? His sister? Please, don't make me laugh, she said, as Izumi frowned. Deadpool, what's up? What's up? He said, watching them start to fight as soon as they saw each other. Izuku was about to stop them when he received a message from Mayuri. Mayuri, I don't know why, but I really feel like punching you in the face. That message sent a shiver down Izuku's spine. Izuku, crap. All Might, well, Kids, who can tell me the good and the bad of today's fight? After finishing his question, a hand shot up immediately. Miss Yaoyorozu? Momo, the villains rushed and didn't make a plan to defend the bomb, while the heroes acted according to the situation, she said, puffing out her chest. All Might, very well said, he said, raising his thumb. Kaminari, don't you think we should take Bakugo to the infirmary? He asked, looking at Bakugo's body lying on the floor next to All Might. Deadpool, is that thing alive? He asked, poking it with a stick. All Might, I forgot about Bakugo, young man. Several hours had passed, and it was time to leave. The only battle that stood out was Shuko's, which ended in an instant. Momo, you didn't have to say that in class, she said, avoiding eye contact. Izuku, what are you talking about? He asked, smiling as if he had forgotten. Momo, whatever, do you want to walk home? She asked, watching Izuku get confused. Izuku, but if we can drive home, why would I want to walk? He asked, tilting his head. Momo, I still have a lot of energy, and I heard there's a new ice cream parlor in the center, she said, insisting. Come on, realize I want a date, she thought as she watched stars appear in Izuku's eyes. Izuku, let's go, he said, taking Momo's arm. Using ice cream as an excuse had definitely worked. Izuku and Momo were searching with their eyes for a place but couldn't find it. Izuku, Miss Momo, are you sure it's around here? He asked, a little annoyed. They had arrived at the mall an hour ago and couldn't find the ice cream parlor. Momo, well, I'm sure it's in this mall, she said, a little nervous, as she saw Izuku looking at her accusingly. Izuku, I see, let's ask a guard instead. Momo, yes, that will be the best, she didn't finish her sentence as they were interrupted. Izuku? Said a black-haired girl of about 12 years old. Izuku, I'm not Izuku, I'm Carlos Santana, he said, putting on a fake mustache, making the girl start laughing. Momo, do you know her? She asked as she saw Izuku's eyes widen. Izuku, Emma? The little girl just smiled and nodded. Emma, yep. I see you didn't recognize me, she said, jumping to hug him, and Izuku hugged her back. Momo, so, you two know each other? She asked, looking at both of them. Izuku, wow, you've grown a lot, little one. Are you coming from school? He asked, seeing her uniform. Emma, yep, I was just with my friends eating ice cream, and when I was going home, I found you, she said, smiling widely. I'm so happy. Izuku, I'm happy too that you've become such a beautiful and happy girl. Momo, can I be heard here? She shouted, getting both of their attention. Emma, hey, Izuku, is the grumpy girl your girlfriend? She asked, frowning. Izuku, no, nothing like that, he said nervously. Momo, for now, she said under her breath, turning her head away. Izuku didn't catch it, but Emma did. Izuku, I know, he said, getting both girls' attention. Did you say you were coming from an ice cream parlor? Emma just nodded. Later. Emma, so, Izuku is taking me home, she said, finishing her story to a Momo who was practically a sea of tears. Izuku, there's nothing better than mint and vanilla ice cream, he said, taking a big bite. Miss Momo, why are you crying so much? He asked, confused. Momo, it's just that she suffered a lot, she said, wiping her tears. Izuku, that reminds me. Did your dad find a good job? He asked, attentive to the girl, who just nodded as she smiled. Emma, with the money you left us, he bought some clothes, food, and job applications. He's now a bank manager, of course, after knocking on many doors, he got a job at a bank, and then he gradually climbed the ladder, she said, taking Izuku's hands. My dad has always wanted to thank you. Izuku, it's not necessary, I didn't do it seeking gratitude, I did it because I wanted to, he said, standing up with Momo. Crap, it's already late. Miss Erina will surely kill me, he said, starting to panic. Momo, Izuku, calm down, I've called the driver, he's on his way. Emma, Izuku, she spoke, getting his attention, take this, she said, handing a small piece of paper to Izuku and Momo. You're invited to dinner at my house on Friday, my dad really wants to meet the guy who helped us so much back then, she said as she left the ice cream parlor, and Izuku just stared at the direction written on the paper and the time. Momo, and she's gone, she was a very nice girl, she said as she opened the note she was given. Stay away from my Izuku, watermelon girl. Momo felt her anger slowly rising, she was not nice at all. Later. Erina, do you think it's wise to arrive at this hour, Izuku? He had his head down. What do you have to say in your defense? You're supposed to be Momo's bodyguard, you should have brought her straight home. Izuku, it was Miss Momo's idea, he said, pointing at her. But I can't complain since the taste was so good, it was soft and really tasty, he said, making Momo, Erina, and Mayuri blush. Erina, you too, what kind of perverted things did you do? She finally exploded. Izuku, perverted things? What are you talking about? I just meant that the popsicles and ice cream we ate tasted really good. Erina, don't say it in a way that can be misunderstood, idiot, she shouted, blushing. Izuku, and how is it my fault that you have such dirty thoughts? He said, trying to defend himself but only received a smack from Mayuri's frying pan. Izuku, and why was that? He asked, rubbing the bump. Today everyone is against me, since it's already past 10, I'm leaving. But I'll be back, stronger than before, he said as he left through the front door. Mayuri, he's an idiot, she said to herself. Vanessa, I think Mayuri is a dare, she said, sipping her coffee. Izuku, dare? Vanessa, yeah, a tsundere, just like Wade, she said, making Wade spit out his chimichanga. Wade, me? A tsundere? Never, he said as he climbed the stairs with Melanie. Vanessa, he never changes, she said laughing while putting some ice on Izuku's bump. Izuku, ouch. Mom, be more careful, he said, eating grapes like a raccoon. Izuku was training in the usual forest, now on his day off. So why not train one for all a bit more? Izuku, this is tiring, but having a quirk is awesome, he said, breathing heavily. Alright, it's 10 in the morning, so I'll train for another 2 hours, he said as his body was surrounded by green lightning. He had gone to the dinner Emma invited him to, and he was sure she felt a bit strange. Flashback. Emma, Izuku, I'm glad you could come, she said, opening the door to a noticeably nicer house than before. Please, come in. Izuku, thanks, he said with a smile as he entered. Huh? He wondered as the girl hugged him. Emma, I thought you wouldn't come, she said, pulling away from the hug with a slight pink tint on her cheeks. Izuku, how could I not come when you're the one who invited me? He said, smiling. Ellie, Emma, who are you talking to? He said, appearing next to Emma. Ha, you are, he said but was interrupted by Izuku. Izuku, I'm Izuku Midoriya, Emma's friend, he said with a bow. Ellie, so, you're like her suitor? He said with a teasing smile, making Emma blush and Izuku nervous. Izuku, no, not at all. I came here at Emma's request. Ellie, I know, I just wanted to tease you. I know you're the guy who took care of Emma and helped us back then. I'm really grateful to you, she said, bowing. Izuku, it's not necessary, he said, shaking his head. Ellie, do you like sea bass? She asked with a friendly smile. End of flashback. Moments later, his father asked him to marry Emma multiple times. Izuku, that was exhausting, he said as he took out his phone since he had received a message. Wait. Izuku, accompany me on a mission. Izuku just put away his phone and took his katanas. Wade rarely invited him on a mission, and coincidentally, they were always surprising. Izuku, what will the mission be today? Izuku and Wade were outside what seemed to be an abandoned house in the middle of a forest. Deadpool, let's go, kid, he said as he threw a grenade into the air, and Izuku batted it with the blunt side of his katana, piercing a window. Dabi, what the hell is wrong with you guys? He asked as he barely came out along with others from the smoke-filled house. Deadpool, knock, knock, he said, causing sweat drops to form on everyone. Izuku, Wade, you should say that before throwing the grenade, he said, shaking his head. Deadpool, oops. Dabi, what the hell do you want? He asked, irritated. Deadpool, do you really have a brazen face? Twice, yeah, doesn't he? I asked him too. Toga, Izuku, she shouted, trying to catch him. Izuku, move over there, he said, pushing her away. Wade, I just wanted to make a joke among mercenary friends, he said, causing sweat drops to form on everyone. Dabi, I don't know what kind of jokes you understand, but that's not it. Twice, Wade's right. That's how jokes are. Izuku, I still don't understand the point of this meeting, he said, catching everyone's attention. Dabi, the kid's right. What's the point? Deadpool, I want to know what you decided, he said seriously, which surprised Izuku because it didn't suit him at all. Twice, Sorry, old man, but it's a great opportunity to make a lot of money. We can't just refuse all for one, he said, leaving Izuku clueless. Dabi, exactly. Deadpool, are you aware that many lives will be lost? He said, trying to reason with them. Toga, why should I respect the society that despised us? She said with her usual smile. You should understand, Izuku, just like you, my parents despised me. Join us. Izuku, not a chance, Toga, he said, frowning. Deadpool, the kid's right. We won't join. I'm a mercenary, but I don't kill innocents. That's sick. Dabi, as you wish, he said, unleashing a large whirlwind of blue fire. Damn. They escaped. Izuku and Wade were jumping between trees at full speed. Izuku, I'm sure we could have defeated them. Deadpool, maybe you're right, kid, but we couldn't risk being beaten. You're not immortal. Izuku, but I'm very strong. Deadpool, strength isn't everything in a fight, he finally said as they exited the forest. Izuku just stayed silent. Wade had experience, he couldn't simply contradict him. Deadpool, by the way, kid, on Tuesday, we'll go to USJ for your rescue training, he said, surprising Izuku. Izuku, why didn't Aizawa tell us? He asked, puzzled. Deadpool, he wasn't supposed to tell you either, but I have a bad feeling, so be careful. Voice 1, that kid kicked your ass. Voice 2, remember when we jumped to our deaths? Deadpool, I went crazy that day, but I think Domino was hotter. Voice 1, but she ignored you anyway. Since Izuku didn't understand Wade at all, he just continued on his way. The next day. Mayuri, how was your rest? Izuku, normal, nothing interesting, he said, helping to wash the dishes. Actually, it was very quiet. Mayuri, what part of your life is quiet? She asked Izuku, who just gave her a dirty look. Izuku, just because your life isn't quiet doesn't mean mine isn't, Blondie. Mayuri, upon hearing that, smashed a plate in his face. Izuku, why the hell do you keep smashing plates almost every chapter? Mayuri, what's a chapter? She asked, confused. Izuku, I don't know, but Wade says it every time he doesn't like something, he said thoughtfully. Mayuri, you're weird. Izuku, and as I said before, you're bleach blonde. Erina, fighting again? She asked, entering the kitchen. It's becoming normal. Midoriya household. Inko, do you think if you invite Izuku to dinner, he'll come? She asked the green-haired woman beside her. Izumi, I doubt it, she said a bit sadly. He was reluctant to talk to me before, and now we barely have a short conversation each day. Inko, I see. Izumi, well, I'm going to my room. Yue gives a lot of homework, she said as she climbed the stairs. Inko, Izuku. Will you ever forgive me? Unknown location. Kurogiri, and do you have a plan? He asked the white-haired man beside him. Shigaraki, it will be the end of the symbol of peace and the green brat, he said without really knowing who they would kick ass. Mayuri, so, are we going to the USJ? She asked as she watched Izuku nod. Izuku, today's training class will be there, and it would be great if Miss Momo hurries up, we're already late, he said, letting out a sigh, sometimes she really is slow. Momo, I think the slow one is someone else, she said as she appeared behind Izuku. Izuku, huh? Momo, nothing, see you later Mayuri, she said as she got into the car. Izuku, what's wrong with her today? Mayuri, neither you nor I know, she said, turning around and entering the mansion. Later on. The bus was heading to the USJ at this moment. Deadpool, so, if I cut off one of my organ, it grows back, not that confusing in itself. Aizawa, you know. I just asked if you checked your schedule for today. Mineta, and if it splits in two, would two grow back, giving me two organs? He asked, pulling out a notebook. Kaminari, that would be awesome. Deadpool, I don't know, I think they merge, I'll try it, having two organs would be the best, he said as he imagined what he could do with them. Voice 1, wait, why would you want two? You don't even know how to use one properly. Voice 2, shut up, you've got yours up your behind. Voice 1, but at least I have one. Izuku, I don't see the point of this conversation, he said, closing his eyes. Tsuyu, Izuku-chan, I know it might sound rude, but your quirk is a bit like All Might's. Izuku was surprised to hear that and started sweating coldly. Mina, that makes sense, but All Might doesn't shoot lightning when he uses his quirk, she said, relieving Izuku. Momo, we've arrived, she said, pointing to the large establishment. All Class A students got off the bus, and soon after, 13 appeared. Aizawa, hasn't he arrived yet? He asked, to which 13 shook her head. 13, several problems arose, and he ran out of time. Aizawa, I see. It'll have to be without him. 13, all right, everyone follow me, she said, starting to lead them into the building. Izumi, this place is really amazing, she said, looking around. Mina, worthy of Ue Sero, looks like this will be one of the best trainings yet. Aizawa, all right, gather around, we'll send you to different areas, he said, pulling out a list, randomly. He couldn't finish as he saw a purple circle forming behind everyone, from which many people started coming out. Damn it. Kaminari, so, the training has begun already? Ue does like to catch us off guard. Izuku, true. 13, no. They're real villains, she said, stepping in front of everyone along with Aizawa and Deadpool. Aizawa, any? He asked the two heroes beside him. Deadpool, let's serve them their chimichanga, he said, unsheathing his katanas, this is going to be rated R. Shigaraki, where is it? Where is it? He asked, scratching his neck, it was supposed to be here. Deadpool, hey, jerk, he said, catching Shigaraki's attention, if you don't want to go home to these two babies in your rear, you better back off, he said, pointing his katanas at them. Shigaraki, Kurogiri. Bring them. Kurogiri, as you wish, he said as more people appeared from another portal. Deadpool, Dabi you son of a biscuit, he said, narrowing his gaze. Twice, hey, Wade, looks like we're fighting today. Izuku, we have one problem. Toga, Izuku, she shouted as she pulled out some syringes, you'll be mine today, she said with a sadistic smile. Izuku, we have two problems. Dabi, today you'll die, he shouted, causing blue flames to surround his hands. Izuku, okay, we have a lot of problems, he said as he activated his full cowled. Ida, what do we do? He asked, catching the attention of the teachers. Deadpool, throw yourselves into the fight without fear, bitches, he said as he blew one of them's head off with a shot. Say hi to Mama Coco, he said as Aizawa started throwing them with his bandages. Izuku, you heard him, attack, he said as several of his classmates entered the battle. Ida, I'll create an opening for you, take advantage and escape, inform All Might about this, he said as Ida nodded. Miss Momo. Momo, yes, she shouted as she pulled out two katanas from her chest, they're just like the others, she said, swaying dizzy. Izuku, thanks, Momo, he said as he used one of the katanas to block a syringe. Toga. Shigaraki, Kurogiri, separate them, he said as several portals appeared and they were placed in different parts. Izuku and Momo managed to dodge them. Toga, so, you were ignoring me for this jerk? She asked with a disgusted look. Izuku, Toga, I don't want to hurt you, he said as he pushed her away with the katana. Toga, you know. If girls only cared about how handsome guys are, we'd starve to death, she said trying to jab him again, and since they pay well. Hey. Momo, Izuku, who is she? She asked with an annoyed tone. Izuku, Miss Momo, it's not the time for introductions, he said as he kicked Toga in the stomach. The other side of the fight. Deadpool, geez, this is exhausting, he said while chopping off a shark man's arms. Did you know Aquaman? He asked before leaping to dodge a swirl of blue fire. I almost bit the dust there. Dabi, I can't kill you, but I'll at least take you out of commission for a while, he said, hurling another fire swirl. I'll kill your kid too, he grinned sadistically. Deadpool, well, make sure he doesn't put you to sleep first. Dabi, just a nap, he said, sending a big wall of blue fire, only to be surprised when it was stopped. Huh? Izumi, you know, your blue fire is pretty, she raised a hand towards Dabi, mine's stronger. With that, a huge blast of fire shot from her hand towards Dabi. Dabi managed to block her attack with another wall of fire, but what he didn't expect was fire coming at him from behind. Shuko, she's not the only one who controls fire, she said, firing another fireball. With Izuku. Toga, just accept Shigaraki's deal and it's over. Izu, she said, transforming into Bakugo. What did your friend say again? Oh yeah, DE, she said, trying to blast Izuku away with an explosion, sending him flying a few meters. Izuku, how did you turn into Bakugo? He asked, turning to where Bakugo was, only to see him unconscious with Twice sitting on his back. Idiot, he said, jumping and dodging another explosion. "Momo, Izuku, I'll help you," she said, creating two small daggers. "Izuku, no way, Miss Momo," he shouted, punching Toga with full cowled at 10%, sending her crashing into a nearby building. "Problem solved," he said, watching as 20 twices stood in front of him, and a new one begins. "Twice, Izuku, buddy," he said before his head was detached from his neck. "Izuku, you weren't the real one," he said, watching as multiple twices approached him with daggers in hand. "I hope I don't kill the real one," he said, tightly gripping the swords as green rays surrounded them. "Lightning cut," he shouted, disappearing. "Momo, huh? Izuku?" she asked, then watched as all the twices disappeared in an instant. "Izuku, the real one wasn't here," he said, feeling his arms numb a bit. "Miss Momo, let's go help Aizawa," he said, taking Momo's hand and running off. Elsewhere, Aizawa was fighting like a pro against the villains. It could be said that most of them they had defeated were thanks to him. "Shigaraki, Eraser, you're fabulous," he said with a sinister smile, "but it's annoying, Nomu," he shouted for the black thing behind him to approach. "Kill Eraser head," he said, and the thing took a big leap. Now, he took out a kind of case which had 3 cameras. "Show the world the deaths of some of their heroes and students," he said, pressing the transmit button. "Aizawa, what the hell is that thing?" he wondered as he saw the black thing slowly approaching him. Aizawa tried to trap it with his bandages, but the Nomu simply caught and retracted them, then punched Aizawa, sending him flying several meters. Aizawa managed to compose himself and tried to erase its quirk, but it simply grabbed his head and buried it into the ground again and again, then took Eraser's arm and began to twist it in a direction it shouldn't go. Aizawa, ah! Yaoyorozu Mansion. TV. In breaking news, a live broadcast interrupted local channels, showing Eraser being brutally attacked by some kind of being. Apparently this broadcast comes from the USJ, where moments earlier a group of UA students had gone for their training. Now, the live broadcast. "Erina, it can't be, Momo and Izuku were supposed to have training there today," she said as she felt her legs weakening. "Mayuri. Mayuri, what's wrong, miss?" she asked upon arrival, covering her mouth as she saw what was happening on TV. "Izuku. City. Civilian, it's UA we're talking about." "Civilian too, there. They're massacring Eraser," he said as he, along with all the citizens, watched what was happening. USJ. Most of the kids had finished with their villains. Meanwhile, Izumi and Shuko managed to subdue Dabi and Deadpool was just giving him a hard time. The Nomu grabbed the almost dead Aizawa and was about to crush his head when a kick sent it flying just a few meters away. "Izuku, Aizawa-sensei," he yelled, trying to keep him awake while giving him some pats on the face. "Aizawa, Midoriya," he said weakly. "Shigaraki, I told you rejecting us would come back to haunt you," he said, sporting a cocky smile. "Izuku, and I clearly told you that messing with my friends would come back to haunt you," he said, as his body started emitting rays, his eyes flashing with hatred for a split second. "Momo, take Aizawa," he said, leaving Aizawa in her arms. "Momo, Izuku, it's dangerous, let's wait for All Might," she shouted as she watched Izuku slowly approaching Shigaraki, but he simply ignored him. "Shigaraki, I'll give you one last chance. Join us. With your help, we'll make our Japan, and then the world. With your one for all, we'll be unstoppable." Izuku was surprised that Shigaraki knew about One for All, but he wouldn't ask him about it right now. In a quick move, Izuku attempted to punch him, but a purple portal appeared in his path, and the Nomu grabbed his arm from the other side. Izuku tried to pull it back, but the strength of that thing was monstrous. "Shigaraki, you could have done great things, Izuku," he said, then placed his hand on the green-haired boy's abdomen. "Now just die," he said, expecting Izuku to start disintegrating, but it never happened. "You're truly amazing, Eraser head, truly fascinating," he exclaimed, then saw that one of Eraser's eyes was open, glowing red, as Momo carried him away. "Nomu, kill the boy," he said, and the Nomu grabbed Izuku through the portal and threw him to the ground. Izuku quickly got up and unsheathed his katanas. "Izuku, I don't know what you are or were, but you hurt my sensei. That's a ticket to certain death." "Lightning cut phase 2, he shouted, starting to spin rapidly, striking the Nomu multiple times, but no matter how many spins he made, the Nomu always regenerated. The Nomu stopped the boy's swords with its hands and broke them in two, then punched Izuku, sending him crashing down. Not far away, the entire Class A was watching the encounter. Even some of the remaining villains stopped fighting to watch the battle. "Kaminari, it's impossible, Midoriya can't take him on alone," he shouted as everyone watched. "We have to help him." "Kirishima, what are you waiting for, class? Let's go," he said, about to start running, but Deadpool's voice stopped them. "Deadpool, no. You'd just be a hindrance to the kid." 13, do you think you can do something?" he asked, looking at the hero who was just lying on the ground. 13, impossible. My quirk reached its limit a while ago. I can't use it anymore. But all discussion ceased when they saw the Nomu grab Izuku's head and slam it into the ground. "Izumi, Izuku," she screamed desperately as she watched her brother being beaten. Izuku broke free and quickly activated full cowled at 30%. He would give it his all, or die trying. Everyone was surprised to see that Izuku, with one punch, sent the Nomu flying to the other side of the USJ. He just held his arm. It hurt like hell, probably broken, but now wasn't the time to think about the pain. Their surprise was immense when they realized the Nomu was coming back at a great speed. He barely managed to cover himself with his arms, but the blow still sent him crashing into a car in the fiery area. Izuku got up as best he could, a grave mistake. The Nomu grabbed his leg and began slamming him into the ground, then threw him against the same car. "Izuku, I can do this all day," he said, gathering the little strength he could. Then he felt fear. He swore he saw that thing smile. "Deadpool, shit, he shouted scared. "We can't let Izuku pass out," he said, trembling a bit. 13, what do you mean? "Deadpool, if Izuku passes out, God help us." Then Wade saw it. The Nomu buried Izuku's face in the concrete. "Momo, Izuku. Izuku, Momo," was all he could say before falling unconscious. "Deadpool, oh shit," he said, then laughter started to be heard. "Here it comes." Everything was quiet. They had just seen their colleague being brutally crushed while trying to defend them. Everyone felt angry, frustrated, and powerless. But that changed when they saw what happened. Izuku was punching through the Nomu's chest with just his fist, wearing a somewhat disturbing smile. His eyes were a deep red, his wound slowly starting to regenerate, a bit of blood trickling from his forehead. "Wade, Neapolitan girl, create a wall now," he shouted, while Shuko, not understanding why, simply followed her teacher's orders. The Nomu fell to its knees, holding the spot where Izuku had punched it before. "What's wrong, homunculus?" Izuku said, kneeling to see its face. "Did I hurt your feelings?" he asked, then swiftly kicked its face hard enough to send it flying across the room. Shigaraki wondered, what the hell? As he watched his Nomu being swiftly beaten. "You know," Izuku said with a smug grin, "I think the other me told you that if we met again, you wouldn't leave alive." His eyes gleamed with triumph as red lightning surrounded him. "First, you'll have to defeat him," Shigaraki yelled, pointing at the Nomu, which had already regenerated and was approaching at a surprising speed. The Nomu leapt, preparing to crush Izuku, but its fists met only pavement upon landing. "Eh?" was all Shigaraki could manage as he saw Izuku beside him, grabbing his neck. "Relax, Shigeki-chan," Izuku said, releasing him. "You'll be dessert." He destroyed the cameras, saying, "Sorry to all the viewers, but this footage might contain extreme violence, foul language, and brutal beatdowns." "Hey, what's up with Midoriya?" Kaminari asked, holding his arm. "I don't know, idiot," Kirishima swallowed nervously. "All I know is this isn't good." "Tell the blonde on steroids to hurry," Deadpool said, grabbing his katana. "I don't know how long the Nomu will last." "Wade," Izuku shouted, looking at him with a smile. "Did you miss me?" "Go to hell." "How amusing you are," Izuku said, blocking a Nomu punch with his left hand. "Didn't anyone tell you it's rude to interrupt?" The Nomu only growled in response. "I thought so," Izuku said, smashing its face into the ground. "Do you like that?" he asked, stomping its face. "Isn't this fun?" he shouted, grinning madly. "Die! Die! Die!" he screamed while relentlessly stomping its now shapeless face until its chest stopped moving, indicating it was no longer breathing. "Kurogiri, get us out of here," Shigaraki demanded, but then watched as Kurogiri fell unconscious. "Crap. Now, Shigeki-chan," Izuku said, turning to him. "Let's dance." With that, he vanished from sight. "Gah!" Shigaraki's vocal cords could only manage as Izuku lifted him by the neck. Let me go, please," he begged, trying to punch Izuku, but for some strange reason, his quirk didn't work. "Is that all?" Izuku asked, seeing Shigaraki gradually giving up. What a shame. He threw him next to the Nomu. Now, he said, looking at Class A. For Narnia, Deadpool yelled, unsheathing his katanas and leaping over the ice wall toward Izuku. And everyone watched as Izuku, empty-handed, ripped Wade's head from his body. Who said you could attack me? Izuku said, crushing the head under his feet and continuing to walk until he saw a face. Bingo. With a mighty leap, Izuku stood in front of Izumi. Look who it is, my little sister, wanting to be a hero, he said, pulling her hair. Let me go, Izumi said, trying to break free, but he held on tight. That's it, that look, the fear, it's exhilarating, he said, then grabbed her by the neck and lifted her. That's how I felt that night, he said, then let her go. But you know, I thank you, to Mom, to Dad, without you, I wouldn't have been born, he said with a twisted smile. Now I'll kill you as a reward, he said, raising his hand. He didn't finish the sentence as a graphene katana pierced his stomach. A graphene katana? He said, surprised. You know, Miss Momo, you could have stayed out of all this and not hurt yourself. I'm sorry, Izuku, Momo said, trembling and starting to cry. I didn't want to, but that's not you, she said, letting go of the katana and stepping back. How brave, Izuku said, removing the katana and tasting his blood. The iron in my blood is too much. Midoriya, this isn't you, Mina said, getting into a fighting stance along with everyone else. Man, I don't know what circuit got fried in you, but another shock should fix it, Kaminari said. Uraka, Izuku, react, Uraka said, preparing to attack along with everyone else. How dare you? Let me have some fun, Izuku said, sighing. I hope Mayuri gives me a good rest after I'm done with you. Damn, he shouted as his body stopped moving. He's waking up. Everyone was puzzled by Izuku's sudden change of behavior. I'll be back, Miss Momo, he said before falling lifeless to the ground. What happened? Deadpool asked, holding a syringe. All Might, I'm here, he shouted, expecting to see villains, but realizing they had all been defeated. Huh? 15 days later. The UA right now had a lot of problems. All the citizens of Japan watched as the villains managed to get through one of the most protected places in all of Japan. Right now, people wanted to know what had happened to the boy they saw being brutally beaten. The school had to suspend its classes due to legal issues. Inko, almost having a heart attack after watching the news, tried repeatedly to contact the UA, but they had closed the door to everyone. The Yaoyorozu family had offered to take care of Izuku. They took him to one of the most efficient medical centers in Japan, but so far, he hadn't woken up, which was quite strange since his body didn't have any injuries. Recovery room. Izuku, was all that came out of his voice as he tried to lift an arm, unable to feel it. A hospital? He wondered as he looked around the room. He truly hated hospitals. I mean, who would love them after having their dreams shattered in one? Izuku tried to get up, but an extra weight on his knees stopped him. Izuku, Momo? He muttered, hearing a tray fall to the ground. Izuku quickly turned his head and saw Mayuri with her mouth covered by both hands and her eyes wide open. Izuku, you look like you've seen a ghost, he said with a smile, finally getting up from the bed, of course, after carefully detaching himself from Momo. How long have I been out? He didn't finish his sentence as a hug from the blonde girl took him by surprise. Izuku, you know, this is unusual, he said while stroking her hair and feeling the girl's grip tighten. Mayuri, you're an idiot, she huffed with some annoyance as she pulled away. Izuku, so? I guess you were really worried about me? A strong slap stopped his words. Mayuri, you're such a huge idiot, she yelled as a few tears started to roll down her cheeks. You wake up after 15 days, and the first thing you say is that I look like I've seen a ghost? Izuku was surprised by the way the girl acted. From what he said, he could deduce that, as always, she was the one who changed and tended to his bandages for those 15 days. Izuku, everything is okay now, he said as Mayuri rested her head on his chest. Mayuri? Mayuri, don't ever do that again, she whispered, a whisper that Izuku heard perfectly. Don't put yourself in danger again. Not like that, she said as her words softened more and more. Do you know how I felt seeing that black creature treating you like its toy? Not just me, Miss Erina, Miss Momo didn't leave your side any of these days. Izuku, I'm sorry, it seems I gave you a lot of trouble these days. Mayuri, you'll have to make it up to me, she said, making a small pout that looked quite cute to Izuku's eyes. Izuku, all right, ask for whatever you want, he said with his usual smile. Mayuri, accompany me to a newly opened amusement park, she said, smiling. I need to shake off all this stress. Izuku, as you command, Captain, he said as he watched her return to her normal posture. Mayuri, if you'll excuse me, I have other things to do, she said as she calmly walked out the door. Izuku, well, he said as he looked at Momo, time to wake up, miss, he said as he approached her. Miss, still asleep, you look beautiful even when pretending to be asleep, he whispered in her ear. That caused a sensation like an electric shock to run down her spine. Momo, how did you know I was awake? She said, blushing noticeably. Izuku, well, I've seen you sleep many times, and I can tell when you're awake or not. For example, your breathing is slower when you're awake, he said as he sat in front of her. Momo, you're my Izuku, right? She asked, her voice somewhat fearful. Izuku, sorry? He asked, confused. Momo, forget it, I know you're my idiot Izuku, she said, trying to hold back tears, but unable to stop them, she quickly wiped them away. What you did was really stupid, she said, maintaining her usual smile, but I won't tell you not to do it again because you'll do it anyway. Izuku, it's good to see you've already accepted it, he said, earning a glare from her. But Miss Momo, whenever you're at risk, I'll kill the bastard who dares to touch a hair on your head, he said, finally making Momo smile. Izuku's house. Vanessa, my baby, are you really okay? Does nothing hurt? She asked the mini broccoli in front of her as she examined his body with her hands. Izuku, I told you already, Mom, he said as he moved away from her. I don't even feel the blows I took. It's weird, having no injuries. I remember having my arms broken and some ribs cracked. It's surprising to have healed in just 15 days. Wade, leave the kid alone. If he had a broken bone, he wouldn't be worthy of being my disciple. Izuku, on what grounds do you say that? You've even lost your arms a few times, he said, pointing at him. Voice 1, we couldn't fit through the drain. Voice 2, didn't a crocodile eat them? Wade, wasn't it a shark? Voice 2, how could there be sharks in the drains? Are you crazy or what? Voice 1, hey, Voice 2, do you realize we're not even real? Voice 2, I don't give a damn. Outside the mental argument, Izuku and Vanessa decided not to get involved, they were already used to it happening very frequently. Vanessa, Izuku, I'll go prepare your favorite meal. Just wait. Izuku, yes, Katsudon, he said as he ran to his room to change. And so ends another chapter with Izuku and his happy family. Omake. 15 days ago. We can see how in a bar, a purple and shapeless mass begins to form, and from it fall 5 individuals. Shigaraki, damn it, he shouted as he smashed several alcohol bottles within reach. That bastard was about to kill me. Toga, he, Shigashi, you were about to meet Daddy Death, she said, laughing amusedly. Dabi, I never imagined Yue would be so tough. Twice, you got your ass kicked by 2 girls, Dabi-chan, he said, mocking. Kurogiri, he was.